All right, so we are starting here on to learning a little bit more about Inventor and how we can use both subtractive and additive processes to make our drawings. So I'm going to run through and kind of demonstrate how I do these. You can do them lots of different ways. Well, it's one of the nice things about Inventor. I'll be able to tell exactly what your thought process is and how you kind of go through, but I do want you to be familiar with a bunch of different ways to kind of do this because it'll make certain drawing tasks easier as you get more and more complicated drawings in the future, and start to get into really, really complex drawings and models as we go. So first off, we're going to start with the new part. So I'm going to go right here to new part. I've got Inventor open. And I will left click on that, get a it new part open. Remember, we have already talked about the tabs up here, how each of the tabs are broken into panels, and then when each side of the panel there are different tools in those panels. We mentioned about this being the drawing area that we are working in, and how over here we've got the view cube and the home button, how we can kind of manipulate our drawing around from there. And then I've also mentioned about the model browser over here and how important this is, that this will really show us everything as far as the way you went about to create your model. So I'm going to start with a 2D sketch. We are working on activity 4.1 G model creation. We're looking at number 1 here, and it says to follow the instructions, create 3D models of each of the following objects using the specified methods and respond to the prompts. So when you're giving the first drawing here, what I'm labeling and going to name as part 4.1.1, and it's just kind of a weird looking part. I don't know what it's really for, but you're given a nice isometric view on that part. And we want to take, and as we look at this, my suggestion to you is start with either the front view or top view or side view to actually get this drawn, and then go from there. So in this case, I think the easiest kind of method for me will to be to kind of take a look at the front view and draw it from the front view. So I'm going to click on the XY plane, and we're going to place this. So I'm just going to kind of give you a couple of ideas here to do that. Now, we can really start to just freestyle draw using the line and line tools, and just kind of real quick start to draw this shape. And as you look on it, notice it will kind of auto click into 90 degrees and so forth. And I'm not even really worried too much about where places are. I'm just freestyle drawing the shape. Now notice I got out there. So if you're in a command and you need out of it, or if it's not doing what you want to do, just hit the escape button twice to get out of that command. I'm going to kind of move this back up and get that back in line with each other. Now, I got that rough shape that kind of looks like I look in the front view, but it's kind of wonky if you think about it. Well, part of that is because I don't have things fully constrained here. We got to add some constraints and put those constraints on it. And those constraints that I'm going to start with first are called dimensional constraints. Now, I want you to just watch what I do here first with this. Watch the process, stop the video, then go back and kind of rewind it and kind of do it over again, following along. But this way you'll kind of understand. So to do my dimensional constraint, again, I'm in my sketch tab. Here's my constraint panel, and I'm going to apply a dimension. Now, we have to look at our prints, and we know that this line length right here, when I drew it, only came out to 3.1 or 0.312, almost 5/16 of an inch. So I left click there to place that dimension, and we see that it pops up where I can now change and edit that dimension. And looking at the drawing that we're looking at, we see that that is 1.5. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to 1.5 and hit enter, or I can use my mouse and click the check. Now, notice how it reacted here. So let me click back on my view cube here in the front so we can zoom out. So it went way, way up there in space because we changed it from a 5/16 inch line to 1.5 inch line. So it's going to go up there like that. Now I'm going to add some more dimensional constraints. And here, right here, we see that this dimension is 1. So when I initially drew it, it was 0.215, yada, yada, yada. Now it's going to be 1. So I'm going to change that dimension. So I hit 1 and enter. So that extends that up. And now I've got to kind of do some of the lengths here. Now, just to stretch this out. So you got to be careful here on this. Now, I grabbed the line and dimensioned the line. It automatically gave me the line length. So, which was great. But now I can't really do that on here, or I might sit here and have to individually dimension each of these, which I probably will have to at some point. But I want to go with my outside dimensions first. So I'm going to dimension from this point, which is my origin point. So, nope, I mean, clicked on the wrong thing there, not a big deal. So I'm going to click from this point, which is my origin point, to this end point all the way over here. Now notice that is 0.969 is the dimension of the rough sketch. I'm going to left click to place that, and we will change that. At looking on a print, we see that that is 4 inches. So I'm going to go 4 inches and enter over. So again, you see how wonky everything looks, and that's okay, because as we add these dimensions, it's going to fix stuff for us. So we can go ahead and go on up and start to place some of these other dimensions. I see that this line here is actually going to be 2, so I'm clicking on that line, which I originally drew at 0.522, and I'm going to change that to 2. Notice how things respond. So, all right, I also see that this line length here is 1. So I'm going to change that to 1. Notice everything really went askew there on that one. So I don't like that at all. That's nasty. So we're just going to hit the undo button back here. I'm going to have to kind of do something else and apply another constraint here that didn't get added. So on there. So let's just leave that one for right now. Now, I also kind of can sit here and say, okay, well, I see that this, according to our drawing, this line right here should be at 1/2 inch. So I'll change that to 0.5. That's good. And this line is much longer, but it shouldn't be. So I'll change that to 0.5. There you go. So we've got that in there. And now I need to kind of do some other distances. So from this line here to the origin point, so I originally drew it at 0.156. It needs to be 0.5. So I'm slowly starting to kind of put these in here and get these dimensions set. Now, let's go back up here to this one for a second. So if we looked at this, when we made this the 1 inch, let's just watch and see what happens. Again, so we can kind of try to determine what went wrong. All right, so it kind of drew all of this way, way down, and it kept that angle. Well, part of that is we need to establish another constraint between this line and this line here. And that constraint is what we call a collinear constraint. So here we have a coincident constraint. Here we have a collinear constraint. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to say I want that collinear to that. And notice now that puts it back where we want it. And for the most part, our drawing is just about done. So we have kind of placed, when we remember in class I talked about dimensional constraints. We've got dimensions of size, and we've also got dimensions of location. So each of these line lengths here have size, but of course where this comes into that is also going to be a location. So, and in this case, whatever that dimension was, it's located a 1/2 inch off of that origin point with where we drew it. So here as well. So we think, and I believe that we've got everything fully dimensioned here on this. So I'll go ahead and just click Finish Sketch. So we'll go ahead and hit the Home button so we can kind of zoom out on this a little bit. So, and now we can extrude that, and we can look to see that that extrusion is 2.5. So I'll take that, move that 2.5. You can either have it coming out of the screen the way it's going now, or flip it and have it going back into the screen. So either way, it doesn't really matter. And we'll click OK. So now the only thing that matters with the way you flip it is you have a preference as far as which side of that drawing plane you want it to be coming out of. So is really what's going on there. Now, we're not quite done with this part. So we still have that little nub that's kind of hanging out on there. So the best way, it's going to go right here. We can see that. The best way to do this is go ahead and create a new and start a 2D sketch. And now we're actually going to click this surface of the part. We call that a surface. That surface of the part to create our geometry and draw that. Now at this point, I can just basically place a rectangle. You know that. And remember, notice how it's kind of picking up on that line. That's projecting some geometry of those hidden lines that are behind there if you get onto it. But be careful, because if you clicked on that, it's going to tie your drawing and your sketch in with that line. It's going to add a constraint to it you might not be aware of. So I'm going to stay away for right now, and I'm just going to kind of draw this up. Now, notice the tool that I'm using is the 2-point center rectangle tool. I don't want to use that one, so I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to select, rather than the 2-point center, I'm going to select the 2-point one, and I'm going to pick a point anywhere on that surface and just go up. Now, I could just drop this place and put it in place and then go back and change the dimensions later, or I'm already here, I may as well go ahead and place those dimensions right now. As we look at this, is going to be 1.5. I'll hit the tab button because this is 1/4 inch thick here, 0.25. We'll place that on there. Now, I've given that the dimensional constraints, but I haven't located where that feature is going to be at on that surface yet. We got a couple other dimensions there that we're looking at. And as I look at my part here, we see that it is given a 1/2 inch dimension. So let's go back into my dimension tool right here. And I'm going to click this side and go to this edge of the part. And as we look at the print, we see that that is 1/2 inch. So I'm going to make that 0.5. That moves it over, and that gives me location here in that particular dimension. Looking at the part, I'm also 0.75 from this edge to the top of this feature. So I'm going to go and click from here to there, and we will dimension this. This should be 0.75. So, and now I have that rectangle not just correctly sized, but I also have it correctly positioned. So again, our 2-dimensional constraints is size and position, or size and location. So, all right, I'm done with this sketch. So go ahead, finish sketch. I'm going to come back out and extrude this. As we look, we see the dimension here to extrude this is 0.75. So I'm finished with this. So now that part is drawn and ready to go. So I can go in and we're going to go File, Save As. Make sure that you are saving to the desktop. And then, of course, you can go back and get those put into your Google Drive. So, and this is going to be Part 4.1.1 hyphen your first initial and your last name. And we're good to go. I'll go ahead and hit save on this one now. So you may get this, so don't worry about it. This is a note on my computer as far as the project that I'm going through. So just hit save, and we are finished now with this part.